Thank you. I want to start with a story today. In October of 2013, I was sitting in my attorney's office, and I was in the midst of a custody battle over school district with my ex-husband. And I was hoping that my attorney and I could make a plan on this day because the day of the hearing was fast approaching. When he stopped and looked at me over the desk and he said, "Rachel, I really wish I was representing your ex-husband today." And I was like, what? Okay. So I left there that day and I kept thinking to myself, what is going on in my life? Like, why is all this stuff happening? I was working a job that was entry level with 2 master's degrees, not making hardly anything. Had been through a divorce recently, now was in this custody battle that was costing energy, time, and money that nobody involved had. And I was just feeling like everything was stacked against me. Why is this happening to me? And I basically cried myself to sleep, and the next morning I was driving to work, and I remember like lightning struck my head. And I know you've probably heard people like talk about having an epiphany. It happened for real for me on my way to work that day. And I was like, oh, this stuff isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And I decided on that day, and boy, I bounced into work that day. I was so excited. Even though I didn't love the place, I was excited to be there because I was going to start this new journey, and I was going to rewrite the story that I had been dragging along with me for all these years that made up the identity that I had that day, which was I'm a victim. I people please. I placate. I do what everyone else expects me to do at my expense. And I was done with that. And I was excited. And I would love to tell you that from that day forward, it was smooth sailing and like sunshine and rainbows. But I wanted to make this talk longer than a few minutes, so I'll tell you the truth instead. What happened to me after that day was what most people would call the dark night of the soul. I went on that journey within, which to me is the most courageous journey any of us can be on. And I was facing my deepest sorrows, my most painful traumas, and that one most worst critic, my inner voice. And I had to go into these depths. And I think back on that time, and I like to use this metaphor, that I think I was kind of like a caterpillar when it, initially when it finds the perfect spot to build its chrysalis. And I don't know if caterpillars are excited, but I sure hope that they do, because if they know what's coming, then I don't know that they'd build that chrysalis. We'd have a lot fewer butterflies. So I was really excited to get started. But I found very quickly that I wanted to run away from this journey, from this process. That my internal world was scarier than anything that was coming at me from outside. I could handle that stuff. This was hard. I was in the trenches. But there was no turning back. And I began to start meeting people who were on this journey with me. And they were one step ahead of me. They were right next to me. They were right behind me. But they were with me. And I started to replace some of my activities. I watched the news every day, every morning, every evening. I loved to be on top of what was going on in the world. I replaced that with podcasts, reading books, my spiritual journey, meditating, mindfulness, awareness, one day at a time. One new piece of awareness, one moment by moment at a time. I built up my chrysalis, which was my support system. So if we think about what happens to that caterpillar when it builds up the chrysalis, and I really didn't know this until like late in my adult life, but apparently a caterpillar turns to soup before it becomes a butterfly. And that, so it has no semblance of what it used to be and no semblance of what it's becoming because it's mush. And so I was mush, and I needed a safe container like a chrysalis in order to transform into who I was becoming. And so my support system and all the things that I sought out, all the stuff I was reading and listening to, was my support. And it helped me get through this dark night of my soul. And I remember when I finally emerged from this journey. And it wasn't like, oh, one morning I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm a butterfly, everything's great. No. But there was this, days that went by, and then weeks, and then months where I didn't have anxiety anymore. And I had anxiety every day. I had no anxiety. I didn't have panic attacks, which I had also had in my life before that. I was saying things easily to people that I would normally not say in honor of my own authenticity. And it was very compassionate and loving. It was an organic process. And I remember thinking, my life is so much different. And if we think about the whole process that this caterpillar went through, when it built the chrysalis and it turns to soup and then it comes out as a butterfly, there's a couple of things that the butterfly has that the caterpillar just didn't have access to. And one of them, I feel like, is freedom. And I felt very free of the restrictions that I had placed on myself by allowing other people to dictate what my life should look like. I was free of that. And the other one is perspective. So a caterpillar and a butterfly live in the same world. But a caterpillar crawls through big old blades of grass and probably has a hard time getting where it needs to go. It sits out on a leaf and it sees some other leaves around it, but probably not too much more than that. And it gets up close and personal with some tree bark, right? Really get to see that tree bark. But a butterfly gets to see the entire tree, thousands of leaves, and millions of blades of grass. From a whole nother perspective, there's the world, the same world, becomes easier to navigate. The path to take becomes so much clearer for the butterfly than it ever was for the caterpillar. And the ability to get where you need to go more effortlessly is there. Now, the wind may blow and knock you off course, but you still have that perspective to see where you need to go to get to safety or to get back centered again. So I keep looking at the timer because it's counting down from 12, and I'm like, how many minutes between 8 and 12? So I don't go less than 8 and don't go more than 12. So I invite you guys today to build your chrysalis. Find your group. Find your support, your own support. Follow what you love, like so many of us are saying today, and I'd love that. Build your chrysalis, turn to soup, and join me as a butterfly. Thank you.